This is Corrections Unlocked. What's up, guys? I'm Alex Duran. Welcome to Corrections Unlocked. Here at Corrections Unlocked, our mission is to share knowledge, to educate officers, and to inspire growth through our experiences working behind the walls. On today's episode, we go behind the walls with one of the most respected female officers in the department. She has walked the line for over 18 years at one of the toughest prisons around. She truly shows how every female officer should carry herself working inside a prison. We have Christina Patino, everyone. Christina, welcome to Corrections Unlocked.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
We're glad to have you here. Another reason I'm excited to have you as a guest is because not only do you bring knowledge and experience, but you get to show that women can work successfully in a male-dominant field. So we're just going to get right into it. What made you want to become a correctional officer?
It started probably around maybe 15 years old or so. I went to a job fair and I actually seen an officer, an OG officer at that, from Corcoran State Prison there that was handing out little pamphlets and pins. And all I wanted was one of those little pamphlets and pins. And when I went up to the table to go grab one, he was telling old war stories about the good old days at Corcoran State Prison. Right. And I got attached to the stories that he was telling, and I just listened, and I never moved from that table. I continued to listen, and lo and behold, 7 years later, at 21 years old, I joined the department, and I actually met that officer.
No way.
Yeah, at Corcoran State Prison. Yeah, I met him, and he obviously don't remember me at all, but I did have to approach him. He was up in the admin building when we used to have inmates up there shining boots and doing haircuts and all of that kind of stuff, and I approached him and told him about my little joining the department experience, and he laughed and he chuckled, and he says he kind of does remember it vaguely, but it was a funny experience, you know.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he was old G too.
So you said you started working at Corcoran State Prison?
Yep, Corcoran State Prison, the old one, the original one.
So how was that like going into a prison setting, being a female? Like, what were some of the challenges you faced your first few weeks coming into the department?
It is a very big challenge being a very huge male dominance institution, both being institutionalized by men officers and as well as male inmates coming in. We have to set our standards a little bit more higher being a female officer there, because we have to prove ourselves a whole lot more, both to male officers, our partners, our peers, and to the inmates. So, you just have to go in and you have to be headstrong. You have to be consistent. And, I feel like that kind of molded me to who I am today. And, just remain humble, learn the best, learn as best as you can. And it was a challenge. I do got to say that because,
right.
You kind of looked, I don't want to say down upon, because, that's kind of a low blow, not necessarily down upon, but they look at you as weaker,
right?
Because you're a female, but
you can't do the job type of
yeah,
thing.
you can't do the job because females, are a little bit less than, but you just rise to the occasion. When an alarm goes off, you run, you go, you don't run away from it, you go to it, and with my training and experience, I felt, or I feel like I hope I did it. I have been doing it. I continue to do it. And I was raised by some of the best. I'm not going to lie, with my experience that I have and my tenure that I have in the department, coming from, one of the max custody, the biggest, heaviest prison that we have in the state. I was raised by the best.
I think you guys have some of the most incidents every year at Corcoran State Prison. I know there's a few other ones, but Corcoran's always hitting that 1,800 mark every year. So what was it like? Like, where did you work at exactly your first couple of years? Because I know you have a lot of experience. I know you've worked the line and you have experience with like the ISU. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I was raised in the SHU I was a shoe cop for many years, and the shoe is called the Security Housing Unit. That was like the worst of the worst. They called it the belly of the beast. There wasn't too many of them back in the day throughout the state. And we used to have like the worst of the worst inmates that went there for disciplinary reasons. If they beat one of us, hurt one of us, custody staff or non-custody staff, or they killed their cellies, hurt an inmate on the yard, they would go there. And or back in the day, validated gangsters. They were housed there for an indeterminate shoe. And then we had this thing called the Ashker Settlement, and that came across the government's lap. And that passed and let all the gangsters out of the SHU, which was Pelican Bay Short Corridor Unit and the Corcoran Short Corridor, which we had, which was 4B1 left. And that's where I was at as well, where we had the biggest gangsters there was throughout the state housed in one section. And they were starting to kick those guys out to the main line so they could program, because the Ashker settlement was settled, and it was allowing the gangsters to go out to the main line. So once I left the SHU, I was picked up into the Gang Investigators Unit, which is basically the squad, ISU. We share the same tactics over there. People call them the Goon Squad, Black Patches, whatever you want to call it, as little like AKAs. But I was on the gang side, and that was probably the best career of my life. That was my goal. That was my my baby. Coming into the department, everybody would say, you know, their goals and stuff they wanted to do. They wanted to promote. They wanted to be a sergeant, counselor, paroles, OCS, SSU. Which is outside on the streets, you know, special services unit, all that kind of stuff. Me, I just wanted to be a gang cop. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to chase the gangsters. And I did it, you know.
That's such a small part of the prison, too, is being a part of ISU, and then also being a female part of ISU. I mean, there's probably, 2 or 3 of you at the most?
Yeah. And, you know, it was a tough situation, too, because it's so hard to get that respect once you become a black patch as a female into the unit, and then out there on the yard, walking the toughest beat in the state, such as Corcoran State Prison, having to pull over an inmate, talk to him. You know, they ain't trying to talk to you.
Right.
You're in a specialized unit. You're in black patches. They talk to you. They think somebody else thinks they're snitching, you know. Mm-hmm. So, and then being a female on top of that. So when I was in the gang unit, they had me chasing the BGF, blacks, whatnot, which is like Kumi, Crips, Bloods, whoever was a black institutional gang inmate. That's who I was following, which is probably the biggest, most populated inmates that we do have in the entire state, which was very difficult, especially a female at that, because we are not very well respected when it comes to that type of population.
Right.
You know, but I handled it. I handled it. You know, you make respect with these individuals, and you get the respect in return.
That's awesome. And like, there's a lot of, people joining the department right now. I think now we're at a time where they're hiring so many to fill in vacancies. What advice can you give women or newer officers coming in the department working like a max security prison?
The best advice I can give, especially female officers, is, stick to your guns. Be you. Don't deter away from who you are. It's easier to take ownership in your mistakes and own up to it, and give respect to where respect is given. You don't need to come in all gun-ho, be that super cop or anything like that, and and be consistent. Be consistent to who you are. Like, don't be wishy-washy. Don't be complacent. Don't be that guy, because you're going to see it
Right.
along the way, your partners and everything like that. But don't be that guy. And the biggest thing of all is pick your battles.
Right.
Pick your battles, because let me tell you something. Us females, we can be cat-like,
Yeah.
So just pick your battles, because we have a long career ahead of us,
That's true.
especially the newer cops coming in, and our health and our mental health is the biggest thing that we need to take care of from here on out, from day one, square one, and we just want to go home safe every night. We want to make sure our peers go home safe every night, and then just know we're the one that's going to win in the end by us going home at night,
Right. I've always had a lot of respect for women working in a prison. I remember as a newer cop, one of the first areas I worked in, my partner, she was a female officer, and right off the back, I'm like thinking I need to be protective. I need to make sure we're okay. And the way that this woman ran this unit was just unbelievable. She had so much power and respect because of how she carried herself. No was no, yes is yes, giving inmates what they had coming, and just being fair. And the inmates knew that. And when somebody was out of line, there was so many different ways to check inmates, whether it was writing them up, whether it was breaking them down to what they actually had coming. And she did a fine job at that. And like when I saw that, I'm like, man, I have no excuse not to be successful or to carry myself, the right way.
Yes.
And I remember seeing you at Corcoran, like you're very respected. One of the things that I noticed a lot of things always get brought up with women is I feel like you guys are targeted for manipulation. I know we all are as a whole, but I feel like women in general, someone's always trying to manipulate or gain one-on-one. What can you touch on that with?
Manipulation's always going to be there. I mean, inmates are going to be inmates. Inmates there for manipulation more than likely. But yeah, manipulation is always going to be there. The biggest thing is that you just got to, read between the lines. Give them what they got coming, nothing more, nothing less. When you get into your housing unit, when you read the yard, when you feed the need, you know who's going to keep coming at you and kind of keep asking for that thing, who's going to keep asking for that bar of soap, that partial, that this, that, just know your rules, know your rules and regulations, know all that kind of stuff. And just like you said with your old partner, that's your biggest thing right there is like, run your housing unit. Don't give them anything extra. Don't start selling showers and selling food trays and all of that kind of stuff, because once you start doing that, you're selling your soul to the devil.
Right.
That's like opening up the can of worms. And when I say selling showers and selling, food trays, I'm not saying like you're selling it like you're at the store selling it. That's prison lingo, as into like, oh, I'll give you this for that.
Right.
I'll give you this for that. You're bargaining. You don't need to bargain with them. They got that coming, you give it to them.
Yeah, that happens all the time.
All the time,
One of the things I've seen too is like newer officers, they'll be put in a situation to where they get manipulated a little bit because they're comfortable.
Yes.
And they might say, hey, man, it's cool. Let me just do this. And they do it, and then they feel like they got them hooked.
Yes.
And what I hear officers say is, man, Alex, I don't know how to say no because I already said yes.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not giving me issues. And in reality, you just got gamed. And what you did right there is going to open up the door for so much more issues. Mm-hmm. And they always ask me, well, how do I go back if I already told them no?
It's so much easier to say no than to reverse it and say yes and then say no. You know what I mean? Because they're going to hold you up on it. All they got from you is your word. That's it. They're there forever. I mean, hopefully they're not, because we do have rehabilitation and they come out and they go back and whatnot. But a lot of them are, especially Corcoran State Prison. And I'm speaking on behalf of Corcoran State Prison because that's where I was born and raised. So a lot of our guys are there forever. We have a lifers. We have a lot of lifers. We're a level 4 max custody. So if you have nothing but your word for them and you tell them, yes, I will give it to you. Mm-hmm. What are they going to do? They're going to wait. Yeah. They're like puppies. They're going to wait because why? Miss P, me, me, Miss P. Miss P said so. Miss P said she will. You know, they're going to wait for it. And then if you say, yes, I said yes, I'm going to give it to you. Then they're going to go and be like, well, Lieutenant Duran, Miss P said she did it before. She'll do it again.
Right.
I would rather not be that Miss P and keep saying yes than rather be that B and say, you know what? No. You ain't got that coming? No.
Right.
Okay, cool. Because they're going to respect that, and they're going to walk away, and they're going to ask me again. Because there ain't no funny business there.
No, you're right. And I think that's like where you kind of get your respect as an officer.
Yes.
Is being consistent, being, keeping your word. I had an OG inmate tell me, he's like, hey, Alex, like all these guys in here, man, they act up and they do the inmate tactics and they try to game officers. And the more that they fight with you guys give in. And us OGs that aren't causing problems are seeing this. And these guys are getting extra shit and they're getting extra meals. And you're putting us in a bind because we're like, well, shit, I'm over here doing my program, being a good inmate. And these guys that are causing up a muck, they're getting more shit than me.
Yep.
So then they're asking me, why should I be a good inmate when being bad is what's working?
Yes.
And that's kind of where like a solid officer, a solid supervisor comes in and checks his people.
Correct.
And I think officers seeing the way you work and how you carry yourself will show them, hey, respect starts here. Mm-hmm. Respect starts with on the line, working the tier, saying no, holding your word, or if somebody has something coming, following through with it,
And that's for sure because, not trying to, go down memory lane real quick, but, when we opened up 4B1 Left, which was our short corridor unit for the gangsters back in the day, we were trying to mimic Pelican Bay, their short corridor unit, which was their D-wing. We had all the gangsters in C unit, in our C section. I'm sorry, not C unit, C section. And our gang unit was running that unit for us, but we were all handpicked. And we were strict. We were strict in that unit just because we were ran by the best. And we had so many people going in there, from lieutenants to sergeants to captains to directors of headquarters coming in there because they wanted to take a look at how this program was being led, because we're the pilot program of everything,
Yeah.
And what was crazy was, I worked probably every position in that unit. I worked from the floor to the control booth to S&E inside the building, and I did swaps. And I only wanted to do swaps inside this building just because it was such a smooth running program. And we had an OG in that building, and his name was Inmate Robinson, BGF member. He went by the name of Camp Bowie. And very respectful, very quiet inmate, B number, been down forever. And he murdered his cellie in that building. And not by no means is I bragging about his murder, by no means. But we never got no problems from him. None. Not one lick of problems from him. And even though that incident took place and that incident occurred, it kind of opened up our eyes because he killed his cellie with his own hands, in which we know that this dude is a very bad guy prior to him doing this. And it literally opened up our eyes 100% even more after the day that he did what he did, to a lot of the newer cops that were in the building after the fact. And we kept telling them, like, look at this. This lets you know that every single day when we pull him out 3 times a day for him to take his insulin, because he's a diabetic, that in a blink of an eye, that cellie could have been one of us.
Right.
And he had a shank by God knows how big, and it had a hook on the end and all of this kind of stuff in just probably a reach of a hand inside of his cell, because that's what he used to kill his cellie, And it kind of was like not a rude awakening, but it kind of was like a little taste that you needed to kind of get you back on track.
Something you need to see to kind of keep you.
Yes, to kind of keep you alert again, because every time he came out, he was like, Miss P, good morning. How's your day? This and that. Like very respectful with staff. Very respectful with staff. And he even said, I don't have issues with staff. I just have issues with cellies.
Right.
But that just lets you
That's
know,
scary.
yeah, we work in the belly of the beast.
Exactly.
And we pulled this dude out for 5 years, 3 times a day.
Never any issues.
Never any issues. And then that one day he just decided to whack his celly and we found him.
It just lets you know like how violent and how crazy some of these guys are that are behind a cell door, you know, 23 hours a day. Mm-hmm. And I remember like searching, doing things when I was a little younger, and you know, like I'm looking at some of their books and I'm like, they're reading books on how to stab people, you know, how to pretty much work the body, how to strangle people.
Yeah.
These guys are smart, and they're not just like fighting smart. They're mentally just really smart guys. And like you said, that area you worked, we have some of the most powerful guys, I think, in the whole state. Mm-hmm. Not just physically, but I mean, guys that can literally make a call and all of a sudden something's happening to somebody else. And I think people forget that.
Yeah.
Like,
especially the newer generation too.
Right. And that's what I was getting. There's a lot of cops that get real complacent in the newer generation because, like you said, like you guys are doing that every day. And then when you see it or hear how this guy literally killed somebody with his bare hands, it puts you in check.
Yeah.
To like, fuck, this is real.
Yeah.
And then people in the newer generation, they don't see that. And it's like they almost need a reality check in a sense to keep them there. And then some of your OG cops, they don't need that because they've seen it. Mm-hmm. And they're kind of like, hey, guys, you guys need to stay in line with stuff.
Yeah,
Man.
tighten it up. Tighten up. You know, make sure that waist chain's a little bit tighter. Make sure those cuffs are a little bit more hooked on, like tightened up,
Right.
you know? But it just kind of puts you in that little reality check, you know? Like, dang, this is where we work.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, you're not working at like a level 1, level 2. You're working at a maximum security prison, and there's some really violent inmates. And now with the stuff changing, like I've seen inmates that were, you know, in handcuffs every time taken out, and now they're on a regular yard walking around us.
Yeah.
And some of these newer officers, they're just like, oh, that's just Joe Blow. He's cool. Mm-hmm. Well, they don't realize 10, 15 years ago, this guy was running riots. Mm-hmm. This guy was in control of over like 500 different inmates.
Yeah.
Very powerful people.
Yeah.
So have you ever had any like batteries or incidents against you as a officer working in a prison or anything close to it?
I've never, I mean, I don't want to, you know, I'm knocking on wood, but
Right.
I've never been battered myself, thank God. But I have experienced a whole lot of sexual misconduct, obviously. I mean, that's just going to happen inside of a male institution. And that does, you know, pardon my French, but it does mess, better word.
Right.
It does mess with your mentality some, because I mean that's just something that, you know, you should not be experiencing as a female, you know. But it does happen, and it does happen more so now than it did back in the day.
Right.
Than what it you know, what I experienced back then, because back then it was more of a shock factor because it never happened so often.
I think there's more consequences
Yes.
too as an inmate
Yes.
to disrespect a woman.
Yeah.
How did you deal with that?
So, back then, we dealt with it a little bit more differently, you know, without saying too much, but, you know, we didn't really like, do a whole lot of write-ups, just because, like, you know, the guy's going to get dealt with regardless of it, you know. And I was trained by, like I said, the best. And they said, you know, you could write him up. You could do this. You could waste your ink. He's a lifer. You know, we had guys like, you know, this inmate I'm sure people seen on Lockup and all this other kind of stuff, Double Life Taylor. You know, Double Life Taylor, he would do dumb stuff where he would draw pictures of his penis and send it underneath the door, and he was like restricted. Like there was a 128, which is like a chrono, written out that this inmate, Double Life Taylor, was not allowed to have any condiments.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And put two and two together, you understand why you
Yeah.
cannot have condiments. It was like
crazy.
discussing things like that inmate cannot have. And then the state progressed, and then they came to a conclusion that we could have an IEX building. And this IEX building was filled with nothing but female staff.
Oh my God.
And I was one of them. And, it just doesn't make sense when it comes to certain things like that. And at that moment, I didn't have time in the department to bid out. So I was stuck in a building like that, and I burnt a lot of time. I called in a lot, just because,
I don't blame you. Yeah.
Yeah, and back then we didn't have pipes. I know I'm saying a lot of prison lingo that probably people need to understand, but the pipes where you go around and you do your little security checks of inmates, making sure they're well, not dead or anything inside of their cell. We didn't have that back then, so we would make it very limited to going out there on the tier just because we didn't want to be sexually, assaulted by them through the windows or whatever,
Right.
showing us their private parts or anything like that. So that didn't last long, those little buildings. But the best way to do it nowadays, just because of it happening so more frequently, is pen to paper, man. Just
Right.
do the right thing. Do the right thing. And I try to tell females that too, just because this job is it's gonna happen.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. And a newer officer asked me, she's like, hey, how do I deal with an indecent exposure when an inmate, masturbates and exposes himself in front of me? What do I do? And, I think you could probably answer that question the best. So we'll have you answer it if you don't mind.
Yeah, I would say just, document it. That's going to be the best thing. Like, I was saying, there was different ways of, taking care of business back then, but, times have changed and now we need to document it because so much more now that we can document can be a DA referral, and the DA will pick it up if they don't have a life sentence. And it can be a suable offense if there's enough write-ups
Right.
of this individual. But yeah, write it up. And the best thing is, if you have a good supervisor, which we do have a lot of, they will pull you from where you're at, and if you're stuck in that spot in a control booth or on the floor, they'll try to put you somewhere else,
Right.
Back then, we didn't really quite have, I'm not saying good supervisors, but we didn't really have options because there was so lack of females.
Yeah.
But now there is so much more, which I'm very pro girl power.
Yeah, there's women have worked their way all the way up from warden
Yeah.
to way up there now. But back on that question,
Yeah.
one of the things that I notice women do, and I think it's the best way to deal with it too, is when that happens, people get stuck and they're like looking and it's uncomfortable.
Yes.
And watching, footage and dealing with incidents, the best thing that I've seen is like, it happens, you walk away, and you don't let it faze you.
Oh, for sure.
You don't give it any acknowledgement, attention, and you keep carrying on with your duties, whether it's checking cells, and you go report it.
Yep.
You give him no satisfaction.
Because that's what he wants.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what he wants. You act, you call him names, you show him affection is what
Right.
is the sick twisted name in his mind.
Yeah.
He's going to be like, she liked it.
Yeah.
She wanted it.
Right.
She asked for it. Yeah, definitely don't act on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Walk away and act like you didn't, it didn't faze you.
No, that's perfect. And
That's definitely a good answer. Good answer, Alex, because honestly, that's the
yeah,
best right
and
there.
I've seen it 100 times, and I'm like, I've seen the bad ones where it's like, stop it,
Yes.
put it down.
Yes.
I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, don't answer to it because once you start answering to it, that's the hook.
Right.
The hook that you gave him. So now I don't want to say you're his, but you gave him the answer he wanted.
Right. He feels like he got his satisfaction out of
Yep.
it. And, I've experienced that. That sounds weird being a guy. But when I worked in the jails as a younger officer, we had a unit, a pod full of women. And I hated going over there to do count. Remind you, I was like 20 years old at the time, working in a jail full of women in this pod. And they're like, hey, Alex, we need you to go count whatever pod it was. And I was like, fuck, all right. And when I would go and they'd see me walk in with my little slick back hair, they'd be like, oh, we got one. And I'd go and fucking count, and they'd be flashing me and just doing everything they could to mess with my head. And I was traumatized. I was scared. I was like, this is disgusting. But so I could only imagine, possibly
Yes.
dealing with that a couple times or how many times you've had to. That's got to suck.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
back, a few years ago, I mean, when inmates did stuff like that, the inmate population would check them hard.
Yes.
And that's just politics. You don't disrespect certain officers, especially ones that are doing their job. And if you did, the repercussions could come on both ends, not only from custody, but from the inmate side. And, things have changed a little bit. So being a newer officer in this generation, it's a little harder to find your flow. But with that situation, I think the best way to approach it is just when it happens, walk away, don't acknowledge it,
Yeah.
and carry on and report it and document it, and that's it.
Yep.
And like you said, if you have a good supervisor, hopefully they can move him to an area where he's not as available to see you.
Yes. Correct.
They're able to placard him up.
Yep. Underneath the stairwell, something.
They're able to move, hey, if so-and-so's working, let's move her over here so that way we don't have that issue today.
Yep.
Kind of like restrict everything you can from him because that's kind of what he has coming at that point.
Yep.
Man, so 18 years in the department.
Yeah.
You make good money. You're a successful officer. You have experience in the gangs. You have experience on the facilities and yards. So what are you doing now?
So right now I work in visiting processing, which pretty much means I work with the public, and it is probably where I'm going to stay at for the rest of my career. At least I'm going to try to write it out for the rest of my career. I really do enjoy what I do up there. I stay really busy. We process all the visitors coming in on the weekend, 3 days a week, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And we do drug busts, and we actually do the whole entire drug bust. So if a female comes in and she passes dope to her husband, friend, whoever, inside the visiting room or whatnot, we go in and we detain the female visitor along with her kids. If she has kids, unfortunately, we detain them as well. Obviously they're minors, so we're not like putting them under arrest, but they come with us.
Right.
And then we hold them up in the lieutenant's office, and we wait, and we search them. We serve them their 888, which is their paperwork to do an unclothed body search of the visitor. And if she has any drugs on her, which I have had over 300 plus detainees and arrests, and we book them up into Kings County Jail after we do their unclothed body search, and we do the arrest of the visitor along with the inmate. The inmate goes to the hole. And it's like doing real cop work. Not saying we're not real cops, because we are.
Yeah.
We are. We are real cops. But we do the whole entire arrest. The only thing we do not do is a NIC test of the drugs, which, I am NIC test certified, but I don't do it because you have to actually go through with like the whole investigation part of it. So we pair up with RISU, which we have a really good rapport with. And they pair up with us, and they do like the Mirandize of the visitor and whatnot. And
so
then,
what you used to do.
Yep, what I used to do. And it's a good teamwork, because if they need help, they have me as their golden goose.
Right. They know you already have the information. You know what they're doing. You see the inside of that side.
Yeah.
And I think you said working with all the gangs when you were in ICU probably helps you out working and visiting, dealing with these females that are like married to these guys. Some of these girls are pretty hardcore too.
Whoa.
Like there's some gangster females coming in that are die-hard, ride or die for their guys, that are bringing shit in all the time.
Yes.
So having someone like you up there that can deal with these is awesome.
We had one female not too long ago who brought in quite a load, and she had it in her breast, in between her breasts, and both me and my sergeant was getting like a heroin fentanyl headache.
Ooh.
And she held her mud. She was not going to strip out, which, she has every right not to. She declined to sign our 888. So we told her, okay, well, then you're going to sit here. We're going to put you in waist chains, and you're being detained. You're not free to leave. And she held her mud for 6 hours. Man. And our squad unit had to go find the judge of Kings County to get him to sign the search warrant, to get her, to force her to strip out, which means we're not going to put our hands on her, but which means she has no denial. She cannot deny it. And we informed her of that. And then once the judge was found, after he was in Paso Robles playing golf, She had about 60 something grams of heroin and fentanyl in her,
my God.
in her breasts, in between her breasts, her cleavage area. And I swear, like, I'm not saying we needed Narcan, but we had such a bad headache from how much this stuff smelt.
That stuff is so strong.
Oh, yeah.
Like just being around the area, I've seen officers fall out. Mm-hmm. So, man, that's awesome that you
Yeah.
guys were able to hold your mud and it
Yeah.
didn't affect you too much.
Yeah, and as soon as she found out she had the warrant, or the warrant was signed off, she was all gun ho about cooperating.
Oh, I bet.
I'll give you it to you. It's right here in my. And I said, nope, we're still gonna go through with the strip out. Like, it's too late for this, you know. And she did. She ended up giving it to us, and luckily, you know, we had gloves on, and you know, we got the bindle and everything else. But you know, she was
Man.
active Southerner's wife, so she was just as hardcore as he was, you know.
Right. So she's like banned from
Yep. Yep, she's banned.
visiting.
Yeah, from all 33 prisons in the state.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I mean, how much drugs did you say she had about approximately?
About, I want to say it was like 60 grams of heroin, and I lost track. I want to say it was about 20 so grams of fentanyl,
Oh my
which can
gosh.
kill probably a whole entire yard in an institution.
I wonder how much something like that goes for nowadays in the prison. That's a lot of money.
Well, I could tell you her bail was like 1.2 million.
Man.
That was her bail to get out of jail. So it was a lot. So just imagine that inside of a prison. Yeah, that just was probably maybe a couple times that,
Right.
you know, but
Man.
they're gangsters. The girls just could be just, and she was not disrespectful to us. She just held her mud,
Yeah.
you know, just like what a gangster inmate would have done.
And that's what people forget, you know, business is business.
Business is business.
Nothing personal,
Nope.
nothing against you. I got a mission to do, and I'm going to do it, and hopefully you don't interfere. And if you do, well, it's all business. Don't take it personal.
Yep, and that's exactly how she was. We took care of her. Unfortunately, she had a little girl with her, and we took care of her too. We fed her. We gave her, you know, we bought her lunch or dinner because it was late. We bought her dinner. We informed the lady that if she didn't mind if we could buy her McDonald's, and she was perfectly fine with it. Like, you know, we still had a job to do.
Yeah, and you guys treat everybody really fair, and you know what I mean? People think that sometimes you guys are cruel and this and that. And it's just like, hey, these are just rules or regulations. You're human just like me. I'm no better than you. Just because you got caught doesn't mean anything. We're doing our job. If you have children, we're gonna treat them like children. We're not
Correct.
gonna be cruel to them.
It's a cat and mouse game.
Right. That's exactly.
Sometimes we win, sometimes you win. You know,
yeah.
we always try to be the ones to be the winner, though.
Yeah. You know, one thing new officers I think get caught up on, you bringing that up, is when they lose, they take it personal.
Yeah, you can't.
You know.
You can't take it personal, because let me tell you something. You're going to lose a lot more than you're going to win.
Right.
But that win feels really good inside.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they're going to outwin you a lot. You know, this is their life.
Right.
This is just your career and a beginning part of your career.
Right.
You know, and I've came to realize, I didn't mean to cut you off, Alex.
No, you're good.
But I've came to realize a lot of the times when somebody else wins, like in my eyes at least, I give credit where credit is due.
Perfect.
I do not take no credit at all when it comes to a drug bust. You know, when a lady comes in and she goes into one of the visiting rooms and she hands her husband, whoever, baby's daddy, dope, and that cop finds that dope, that's not my arrest. That's that cop's arrest. I
Right.
just take the lady to jail.
Right.
You know, I just do the strip out. It's not something to brag about, because trust me, it's
Yeah.
not a fun sight to do.
Yeah, teamwork.
You know,
I mean,
it is a
everyone's
teamwork.
everyone's doing a part. Everyone's
Yes.
doing their part, and at
Yes.
the end of the day, you guys are helping the prison system, and less drugs are coming in, and that's kind of what we're there to do.
Yeah. And, you know, like you said, it's teamwork. We're a team. We're a family. When you become a correction officer, it's so crazy because you become a family. And you know, I want to say fortunately, I found my husband there, an officer. I just want to make clear of that.
That's awesome. You bring that
Hmm.
up because it's really hard to understand the daily life of a correctional officer and what we're seeing and doing, and then going home and trying to decompress.
Yep.
And having somebody that works in the prison that can relate, that sees what's going on, in my opinion, can probably understand you better than anybody else outside of the prison. And then being able to keep a marriage, and being solid, you know what I mean? That's so hard to do. And not just in the prison, but just in this society now,
Oh, yeah.
with the way things are.
Oh, yeah.
The whole marriage ratio, people treat it like shit. They don't respect it. So I have a lot of respect for that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And, it's crazy because, we work together so much, like as a unit, and I would always tell myself, 21 years of age, single, I'm not going to marry a cop, you
Right.
know. Yeah, well, I'm a statistic. But you know what? I wouldn't have changed it any other way because we're going on 13 years or so, and we couldn't be any happier. And we managed to make it work. We have our ups and our downs, but you know what? We have a whole lot more ups than we do downs.
That's awesome.
And just like anybody else, we're a family. And he understands the ins and outs of how things go in prison. And he respects those boundaries. My husband, he respects those boundaries. He knows, like, my partners are my partners, and he loves that I have those bonds with my partners, like
Right.
my male partners, because he knows I'm protected.
Right.
Even though he knows I can handle my own,
Right.
he knows I'm protected, because he knows I'm a strong woman. Like I'm a very hard-headed, stronger woman, but he knows, like, being in a male institution, a male dominant institution of men officers, you're well-rounded, like you're well taken care of. Just like you said earlier about being a man and wanting to be that man to take care of your female partner.
Right.
When I would be checking an inmate and a male cop would come up and be like, here, let me help you. Like, you give that look, like, back up.
Right.
Because you want to be that person.
Yeah.
And it's not that you want to be that person to just show face. You want to just show that inmate that you got this.
And honestly, I've worked with female officers, and I've seen them dealing with an inmate. And, most of the time, if you're working an area, you should always be with your partner. Nowadays, people need to get back to that, but that's another story.
Yeah.
But I never cut my partner off, man or woman. They're a correctional officer just like me, and they're dealing with this situation. I'm not going to take control of that. I'm going to post up, and the way I like to do it is I'll stand to the side of an inmate to where if he were to hit my partner, react, I'm in a position to where I can take him down. But I'm just there to observe. I'm just kind of like a small little bouncer because I'm not a big guy. I'm just kind of posted up. I'm watching the day room. I'm watching movement because I need everybody in that area to know I'm in control here and my partner's dealing with the situation, good or bad. Whatever happens, we're going to deal with it together.
Yes.
I hate when an officer goes and cuts another officer off or tries to take control. It's like, hey, dude,
I got this.
what are you doing? Slow your roll.
Yeah. And you nailed it. That's perfect right there. And I honestly say that could probably be the best way to answer it for a female cop too. You know what I mean? Because that's the way each of us probably wants to feel. You know what I mean?
Right.
Especially when we're not decompressing a situation, but when we're trying to analyze a situation. You know what I mean? Because when we just got disrespected, or we just got to check this guy, or we just got to just handle this situation, that's all we want. We just want you to be that little bouncer right there. You know what I
Right.
mean? And it don't matter if you're a little guy or if you're 6'4" like my husband. You know,
Right.
we just want you to be that guy.
Yeah.
That partner, whether or not you're that guy or gal, we just want you to be that partner there, just in case things go sideways.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, we just want to make sure that we are that person that put, that guy in place, in his place, know?
Right.
And it don't have to be hands-on. It could be that verbal judo, because
Yeah.
that verbal judo is where it's going to take you in the long run.
That has saved me more than half of my possible incidents that I could have been in. I'll never forget, it was probably about 5 years ago. I was working 3A facility as a sergeant, and we're doing yard release, and we're getting to the last building, and this big old guy just starts mouthing off. And he was looking for a fight. He was a new guy on the yard, and he was just kind of trying to prove himself. And he starts mouthing off to me. And I got all my officers right there. And I'm like, man, what is this all about? And I see this big old officer from the corner of me walk right up to this guy, pretty much put him in check because he had that coming. and the guy got scared, and that guy was your husband. I'll never forget that. And I was like, oh man, these guys got my back, and I think that's when you realize when you go to work, you have a lot more respect for the people you work with, your partners, which is kind of going back to what you said. Mm-hmm. You have your partners you work with, and you know who's who, and you know you're going to be safe. Mm-hmm. And I feel a whole lot more safer after that day when I went to work. And I was always, is it Gary working today? If he is, I got my 2-3 guys. Yes. I should be good.
You're good.
And as quiet as he is, that let me know right there. Somebody woke the bear up that day.
That's all you need.
Yeah. I'll never forget that. That was a good day.
Yeah, that's all you need. And what's crazy to piggyback on that too is, when I left the gang unit, I went to 3C04, mm-hmm. Which was like the belly of the beast on 4 Block. And in 3C Yard. And that's where all the gangsters were. They called it the White House.
Oh, shit.
And every gang member, the heavies were in there. We had like the Mexican Mafia heavy in there. We had the Aryan Brotherhood heavy in there. We had the Crip heavy in there.
All in one unit.
All in one unit in 3C04. Wow. And the control booth was out because he got okie doke from the Southerners. I guess they popped the door and they went in there and stabbed some dudes. So this control booth went out, stress or something. I can't remember. And that spot was open. Well, when I left, got removed out of the gang unit, my time was up for 3.5 years that I was back there. I asked to be in that building because, one, I knew I could walk the line again because I never disrespected anybody.
Right.
I never disrespected friend or foe.
They probably had a lot of respect for you, too, coming out of a gang unit.
Yeah.
Knowing you're investigating them, you know everything they do. And then being on the line in front of them.
Yeah, and and it was funny too because when I finally got touched down back on the yard, a lot of them were kind of like laughing at me, not like making fun of me, but laughing at me, thinking I was undercover.
Oh,
because
mm-hmm.
they see me back in the regular patches, which are yellow patches and not black patches, mm-hmm. and they were like, Miss P, we know you're undercover, blah blah blah, and I'm like, no, bro, I'm back. This is me, Right. And when I was back there, I seen a lot of stuff, and I've seen riots. I seen fights in between the Southerners and the Bulldogs, and then of course I had to use force. I had to shoot our 40 millimeter launcher to quell a lot of like the fights and all that kind of stuff inside the housing unit, and having. Like you said about having cops have your backs, I had a lot of newer cops on the floor. So when I was in the control booth, I felt like I was like an extra floor cop, which that's how it should be, but it doesn't really happen like that all the time because, you have to realize the fact that you have you have lives in your hand when you're in a control booth. Not only inmates' lives, because you're there to protect them as well, but you also have your cops' lives.
100%. And you bring up a good point. I remember when I worked as a floor officer. I mean, you got to remember when you work in a building, there's 2 officers. There's usually about 150 to 200 inmates, and it's a little scary. It's a little overwhelming. I would get anxiety.
Oh yeah.
When there's like day room or movement, because there's so many people walking around you, and you have this. I need to protect myself. I need to make sure I'm okay. And without getting complacent. People get too complacent where they let too much movement walk around them, and I hate that. But what I would always do when I had to go deal with a situation, so I'd look up for my control cop to make sure he was watching me, because at the end of the day, if I were to get hurt, stabbed, beat up, he's going to be the last guy that can use any type of force to save me. Mm-hmm. And you brought up a good point, because there's a lot of officers that are working control booths or settings like that, and they'll just read a book or whatever they're not supposed to be doing, but they're not watching their partners. And you have such a liability up there, such a big responsibility. Just because you're sitting, 5-6 hours out of the day, for within like 5-10 seconds, you could be saving somebody's life, whether it's an inmate or an officer.
Yep.
So that's awesome. You bring that up.
Yeah. And it's a big responsibility. It is. It really is. Because, you have a housing unit to run, and it is mass chaos. You have everybody screaming for cell numbers to open the doors, and then you got your partners that you're trying to watch to make sure their lives are safe. And then you got, like I said, or like you said too, you got inmates' lives in your hands. And, when I was, getting back to that real quick on 3CO4, when I was in 3CO4, we had a murder. We had a murder in 3CO4 inside the building. Fortunately, thank God, it was not on my watch, but it was on the watch right before me. And I used to do swaps on that watch. That week, we skipped.
Man.
And thank God we did. But, of course, it was our Southerners killed one of their own. And it was probably one of the worst murders that they ever did. And they stabbed a dude like 300 plus times. Oof. And stuffed him underneath the bunk. And he was found naked. They made like an impression of him to embarrass him. You know what I mean? To embarrass this individual. And when we got there, third watch staff got there, they had a crime scene, everything else all taped off and all that. So when you walk inside the housing unit, usually it's mass chaos. You have everybody screaming, yelling, everything else. This building you could hear a drop of a dime. Wow. It was so quiet. You could hear the cops whispering, the investigators, the ISU, you could hear them talking almost too, because it was so quiet inside that housing unit, because it just happened that they already took the body out and they had the cell locked off and everything else, that we were just like, what the heck's going on? They're like, oh, they killed so-and-so. I didn't want to say his name, but up in cell, 213. And, we were like, oh my gosh. And it was just so crazy because the night before, this individual was kind of sitting off to the side by himself, and that's not normal for the Southerners because they usually like go in packs.
Right.
They usually walk together, they play cards together, they play dominoes together, kind of like how you said, referring back to us, not that I'm comparing them to us, but we do a lot of stuff similar as inmates. Yeah. We say good morning to each other when we're walking past each other. That's what inmates do. We try to go in packs when we go in places, but that's
what did that guy do? Do you know?
Rumor has it is that like his girlfriend or somebody that he was with was a big homie's sister. And supposedly he like beat the shit out of her. Sorry, I didn't mean to cuss, but he beat the crap out of her, and he wasn't supposed to, or he put hands on her or something of that matter. Well, the big homie didn't like it.
Goes against their politics. Yes,
goes against their politics. So the big homie sent word down to manhandle him whenever he landed, and he just so happened to land at Corcoran. So when he landed there, you can tell he was very outcast.
Oof.
And it was horrible. Like I noticed it, and he wasn't even in the building long, but just the couple days that he was in the building, he stood out like a sore thumb, and everybody just outcast him.
Right.
To the point where I wanted to pull him aside and be like, run.
Yeah. Can you stay here? Do you need to go to a SOI?
Yeah. You need to go to the program office. You need to go talk to somebody. Like I felt like, but you can't, because these guys, they're just so like gangster lives. Like they're so institutionalized. Like he wouldn't have PC'd up because he didn't think anything bad, Right. And I talked to him the night before. Like he was sitting on the little bench watching the TV, which is like right underneath your booth. Mm-hmm. And he was just looking up at me because I would walk in like a figure 8 up in the booth with my gun.
Damn.
And he was on the Southerner side, and he was all by himself. And I just looked at him and I asked him if he was good. No pun intended, but I was asking him if he was all right, like if he's okay. And he shook his head, yeah. Well, that was the last comment I got out of him, because less than 8 hours later,
Too much pride, I guess. Huh?
Yeah, and that's usually what takes place with these gangsters' mentalities, But that's another thing, is that, like, being a female, sometimes you can kind of get them to walk off the tier, because we have that touch.
Right.
Other than you guys, being a man,
Yeah, I think naturally, like, men just feel more easy and open talking to a woman, Mm-hmm. Like even when it comes to officers, us guys, we don't really share our feelings or emotions with each other. Mm-hmm. But when you can kind of get to somebody that's understandable, and it's usually a female, mm-hmm. you're able to open up. That's an issue that we struggle with as officers too. That's another topic. This officer told me a long time ago. He said, "Hey, you hear how loud it is in here?" And it was in a day room. There's inmates walking around doing whatever. And I said, "Yeah." He's like, if it ever gets silent, remember, silent is a really bad thing in prison.
For real.
And I didn't know what he meant by that until I seen a few people dead. And a couple of good riots, but like you could feel the tension
Yeah.
before it arises, and then anytime like it got quiet, I would just look around at the inmates, and they were usually looking at whatever the hell was about to
Yeah.
happen. So
And you start paying attention to that item too, or that
Yeah.
person too, like what's going on over in that area, you know?
No, it's scary, and that's, I think people forget, like, our blood pressure gets like off the wall. It's like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
We're sitting down, bullshitting, relaxing, half asleep because we're tired, and then boom, an alarm kicks off, and we're running towards trouble, not away. And that's
Yeah.
probably one of our biggest things as a correctional officers. We run to incidents, and a lot of people don't understand that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And those are things that kind of mold you along the way, like, and you don't realize it until you leave the gates, how things like that are, I don't want to say draining you, but are building you, I guess, because I don't think they drain me because I love my job.
Right.
I really do. I love being a correction officer. People go in and people are like, oh, I'm here just for this. I'm here just for the retirement. I really do love my job.
Right.
Yes. Do I have bad days? Yes. We all have bad days. However, this is what I was born to do. Like, seriously, this is exactly what I was born to do. And I really wish more people would look at it the way I do, instead of just being like, oh, I just want to do my 8 and hit the gate.
Right.
I do too. I want to do my 8 and hit the gate. I don't want to be held over. If I want to work overtime, I want to pick and choose where I work.
Right.
Why? Because I have the time in to do so.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I want to hit the gate as well because I don't want to be held,
Yeah.
But the reason I say I love my job is just because, like, I don't wear it on my sleeve when I leave. I do go home to my husband, who is a cop as well, and he is a senior cop. He does have time in, and we do de-escalate. We do talk about, like, hey, how was your day? He tells me how his day was. I tell him how my day was, and then we kind of end it.
That's perfect.
Yeah. And if it was a worse day, like a little bit worser of a day, then we kind of let it keep going a little bit longer than expected.
You got to get it out.
You got to get it out.
And that's good you have that outlet with your husband.
Yes.
One thing, I remember like hanging out and drinking, and guys are talking about work. And this one guy goes, man, I want to hang out. I don't want to talk about work. It's fucking stupid. Mm-hmm. And then it hit me, these guys are talking about work for a reason. They're not talking about work because they want to. Mm-hmm. They're talking about work because there's shit inside they have compressed for the last 5, 10, 15 fucking years that they need to get out.
That's it.
And people don't see that. And
That's
people are like, fuck work, this and that. Well, fuck work. I get it, but it's my career. It's how I pay my bills. I make over $100,000 easy a year. It's not the best job, but it's the job I chose. And people are like, how do I talk about like seeing some of these issues or getting my blood pressure up high and almost getting involved in a fight or stabbing or whatever? How do I open up about it? And having, your partner to do that with is awesome. Mm-hmm. And I see a lot of gentlemen, a lot of guys trying to do that, and they don't know how. They don't know how to open up, or they don't feel comfortable doing it. So when I talk to some of my buddies, I say, hey, man, well, what do you think you should have did? I don't Monday night quarterback them, but I open up to where they can get it out.
Yes.
And that helps out so much. Even when I do it with my brother or whoever, it just it's an outlet to get it out, and it makes you better prepared for the next day.
Yeah.
I've
been part of the peer support team, and I was the lead peer support instructor of it for quite some years now. I've been peer support team member for about 16 years, and I was trained by some of the best. When retired officer, he's now passed away, Leroy Cordova, stepped down from being the co-team leader. I stepped in as that, and then I became the team leader once Sherry Wilson moved out onto better things as a lieutenant. But let me tell you something, that peer support and EAP, Employee Assistance Program, is probably some of the best outlets we can have out there, just because, just like you said, going to the bar, chit-chatting, whatever, you do with your peers. It don't necessarily have to be the peer support team, but talking about it is the best because
Right.
it relieves so much out of your mind and your mind games that you battle amongst yourself than it is then to hold it in. Because me, I just go to training. I don't get paid any extra to hear anybody's demons that they battle. And I've been on call outs like no other, from suicide attempts to God knows car accidents, unfortunately, because we
Right.
have a lot of those, to the drives that we have to take to and from for the last 18 years, in the fog, in the rain, in the sleet, and they weigh heavy on you,
Right.
and these call outs do weigh heavy on you. And I love it. I love doing what I do. I love doing the peer support. I love lending an ear. I love lending a shoulder. But sometimes you have to get this stuff off your chest.
Right.
And you have to de-escalate it. And you have to hear their stories and hear what they're battling and hear what they've done in that day, to where it could be just something so simple to, today was my first code 2 alarm that I ran to. And it might not even been the best code 2 you've ever seen in your career, but it was the best in their career. So you're just going to, like you said, maybe not Monday night quarterback it, but you're going to talk them through it and listen to them, because you've probably experienced some crazy some crazy code 3s, like I have,
Right.
mini 14 round shot right next to you. And you're like, oh, snap. Did that just happen? Your butt kind of puckers a little bit, I've seen some crazy code 3s, but this individual 2 days in, this is probably their first, huge fight that they've ever seen in their life at 21 years of age, probably at home living with parents, which is fine. But that is something that, like a rude awakening to them, that they've been weighing on, needing to get off their chest. Like, oh my God, I don't know if I could work here.
Right.
Hearing that gate slam behind them. Oh my gosh, I think I want to turn in my badge. No, hold on. Let's talk it out. Do you really want to? And I'm not trying to force them to stay at work, but I don't want them to make a rash decision. Just because, like I said, I don't want them to freeze, but I don't want them to just quit.
Right.
Because I don't want them to freeze in a situation where if I'm getting my ass butt
It's gonna
chewed.
get you hurt.
Yes. That's what I mean. So, there's different things that you do need to get these individuals stuff off their chest, because they might not have somebody like your significant other to get their demons out.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So the peer support team, that you get a talk with officers and stuff.
Everyone, free staff, nurses, anyone. We have a huge array throughout the institution.
Man, that's awesome that you're able to help out. And I'm sure you've heard some crazy stories
Oh, yeah.
with people dealing with situations. And, just from your experience, all the situations that you've dealt with peer support, I'm sure it's with people that you had no idea would even have issues.
None at all. And the best part about it is when you do these call outs, you feel better about yourself. Everything is confidential because obviously you do not talk about this to anybody else. But you will pass them throughout the day, throughout the years, and the eye contact that you make with that person is all you need.
Right.
It's just
It lets them know.
that you're still there and you're still thinking of them. You don't even have to say 2 words to them. I will pass somebody, like it could be a kitchen person, a kitchen cook. I'm just throwing one out there, just to say it,
No, you're right.
And that kitchen cook, we don't even have to say a name. And that person will just look at you and just know that you reached out to that person because peer support was activated and we talked. And that person knows and still knows that I'm here. And I know that they needed me and I needed them.
Right.
Because I could have needed them at that moment too. You know what I mean? That talk that we had, But I don't need to stop them and say, hey, are you good? Because they know that eye contact was,
Eye contact's huge in
huge.
prison.
Because they have my number. And
Right.
my husband knows. I have random people texting me, calling me all the time too, because I give my number out all the time for peer support. Like, hey, call me at any hours, all the hours, the only person you're going to wake up is my dog.
Yeah. But when people need help, it's usually at a weird point in their life or a weird time, and all the buildup comes, and you just you get triggered, and you freak out, you get anxiety, and you're like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And every day we walk by people, hey, what's up? How you doing, man? I'm good. Fuck you, you're not good.
Yeah.
99% of the guys I walk past that say they're good, they're not fucking good.
No.
They have issues. They're dealing with stuff. They're depressed. They have anxiety. They're dealing with something going on in their life. And that's why, like, when I see certain people or wherever I work out, I'll make it a point to say, hey, man, how's everything going? Oh, it's cool. This, and that. Hey, so how long you been here? What do you want to do? I try to get a feel for them to let them know if this is what you want to do, this is what I recommend. Or if I hear people say, I don't know, I'm just cool right here. I feel like that's them telling me they gave up.
Yeah.
Because everybody should have an outlet or a goal.
A goal.
And when I hear these youngsters or even some of these OG cops say, I don't care, man. Nah, man, you have to care.
Yeah.
Because whether you want to or not, you got to be here tomorrow.
Yes.
You got a house to pay or probably some $100,000 truck.
Yes.
You got something you got to pay off, or you have some type of responsibility, and you need to kind of take pride in what you do and how you carry yourself. And so I always try to talk to certain officers or whoever, just so that way I can feel them out. And you'd be surprised at how many people will open up and tell you shit you had no idea. But I rather have them do that with me than not do it at all and wake up at 2 a.m. and think of something stupid.
Yeah.
And, suicide is a big deal in our department. And people always ask, well, why or what? Well, it has to do with a lot because, well, all of us have guns in our house, and we have access to guns left and right. And if we're dealing with stuff, sometimes that's an easy outlet. And unfortunately, I've seen that with officers, and it's really sad. It's really tragic. But I feel like if we don't talk about it, it's just going to progress. So you being part of the peer support team, giving officers an outlet to call, to text, and say, hey, I don't know what to do here. That's huge.
Yeah. And it really is. It's probably, besides chasing gangsters, it's probably one of the biggest things to me. I battled with depression myself, and it's kind of crazy because being a cop for so long and that kind of stuff. But mine was on behalf of losing my dad. I fell into depression and came out of it, of course, with help of course, my husband and a lot of my friends and family. Thank God I managed to get out of it. But I have fallbacks every now and then,
Right.
and I am okay with it. I deal with it, and I'm okay about talking about it because,
That's good.
like we said, a lot of people carry it, and a lot of people don't know what people are battling unless you talk to them. And it's funny because I have the semicolon tattoo on me, and I take that real heavy to my heart because of suicide awareness. People don't understand the depths of it, and when it hits home real hard to me, just
Right.
because of the people, the hardships that people battle because of depression and like you said, the quickness of it. Somebody could tell you they're okay today, and then tomorrow they could just be looking down that barrel, and we don't want that.
Right.
Just because we are such a huge family and we're so tight knit that tomorrow when somebody starts talking and saying, hey, did you hear about, and we're like, no, that's not what you want to hear. You don't
Right.
want to hear that. And being in the department so long that we have been in the department, we hear it too often, but I really do believe peer support is a very good outlet. And you know what, even if you're not in peer support, being there, just you, like you
Right.
said, what you were just said 2 seconds ago, you being there for somebody else and just asking them, making that contact with them, that right there is the first step, because that's what I was before I even joined peer support. I just joined peer support just because hello, look at me, I'm a talker. I'm a good listener. I'm a good ear, but because I fell into my depression and I reached out for help myself, I felt like I could help others because I've been there, and I could tell people my little testimony,
That's what the department needs. They need people to kind of motivate and push them to stay on the right track, because it's real easy to fall off in this line of work. It's real easy to get discouraged, to fall into depression, whether it's with a relationship or money. When you're going into an area that's dark and scary and just low morale, and you're doing that 16 hours a day.
Yeah.
It's cool to do that every now and then, but when you're doing it every day, every day, every day, you don't realize how much it just drains you.
Oh, yeah.
And just kind of puts you in a weird mood. And you can kind of see it at certain prisons, how the morale's real low, depending on your managers or your officers, how people carry themselves. And you see other places where they're real upbeat and happy-go-lucky. It all has to do with that one person that's leading. And you being a seasoned officer, you carry yourself well, and you can lead a lot of other female officers in the right direction. And that's what's awesome about where you work at. You're exposed. You get to see everybody coming in and out, and they see how you carry yourself. And fuck, I think you're like 30, 40 minutes early every fucking day. You know how many officers with 18 years
Yeah.
can say that they come to work 10 minutes early?
I know. I get that.
Yeah.
I get that almost daily.
That-
People tell me, like, who's your relief? I'm all, nobody.
Yeah. And
I don't
that's-
relieve anybody.
Dude, that's just discipline. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I have a lot of respect for that. When you're fucking getting to work, you're ready to work, and it's your shift hasn't even started.
Yeah.
When you have everyone else, walking in 5-10 minutes late, and I'm guilty of it. I'm not gonna lie. We go through phases in our career, but
Yeah.
man, since I've known you, you've been fucking 30, 40 minutes late every day. And
Been
I'm
that way
like,
my 18 years, Alex.
Yeah.
18 years. I've always been that way. I don't know why. I think it's just like my mindset. But
That's a good thing right there.
yeah.
You know.
But you know what? I want to piggyback real quick on what you said about the female staff on my area. I work in like I said, I work in visiting. I work with some really good officers, and probably some of the best in visiting right now. We have a lot of new staff, but are hungry. And when I define hungry, they're hungry in their career. They want to like excel, and I know what you said about leading by example and whatnot, but not trying to. I'm very humble. I am always humble. I've always been humble, and everybody always asks, like, why did you never promote? Why did you never excel? Why did you never get bigger than what you are, like promotion wise? That was not a journey for me. My journey was to be a gang cop, and I did it. I never hung my boots up though, because I still chase gangsters from where I'm at.
You're still doing it.
Yeah, and I still do it, and I have my gang unit on the streets as well, still in my back pocket. Like, they just emailed me 2 days ago and was asking me to look into some northerner that just landed on our yard, and I didn't even know he landed on our yard, one of our yards. And it's nice that I still have them in my back pocket, but you just got to keep that open line of communication open, and they know I'm not in the unit no more, but still they have that respect for me,
You have all that experience,
Yeah, and back to the females. What I was going to say is the girls that I work with. I think they're some of the best that I got, and they work hard, and I know they work hard because of me.
Right.
Because I know if I wouldn't have been there, they wouldn't be there with me.
Right. I think like you've kind of Miyagi'd them in a way too, because you're very humble. You don't really like brag about stuff, but you show them how to do their job by leading. You say, hey, this is what I do. This is how I do it. And when there's a situation with like a visitor or whoever, you step up and you show them, I'm here, I'm there.
Yep.
And all they're doing is watching. They're getting Miyagi. They're like, oh, well, look at her. Like she's doing this. She said this. She's being assertive. She's being dominant. She's doing everything a solid officer should be doing. And seeing that firsthand, if I'm a new cop, I'm like, all right, cool. I know what to do now.
Yeah.
So whether you're officer, sergeant, lieutenant, like as a sergeant, I can only help out sergeants. As a lieutenant, I can only help out lieutenants. You're on the line with these officers. You're going to be able to help them before anybody else can.
Yeah.
And it all starts with what they see and you being there. Them able to see that, experience it with all your time and experience, they should be really fucking happy to have that right there.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of places that don't have that. They're getting trained by 2-3 year cops, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
But compared to somebody like you, they're gaining so much more knowledge than they could ever fucking imagine.
Oh, yeah. Because, back to when I started, the females back then were not helpful.
I bet, yeah.
They were little angry birds, You know, they didn't want no 21-year-old freaking little fluffy little rabbit tail coming up in there, you know. Not
Who do
that
you
I
think
was.
you are?
Yeah, who do you think you are? All happy go lucky, good morning, you know, early bird special.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
they were shunning me. They were like, you're going to go work with Joe Schmo. And I was with the most laziest cop partner ever. You know, he was sleeping half shirt unbuttoned. We used to wear turtle shells back in the day where people wear outer vests nowadays, but the big ugly, you know, stanky, you know, outer vest nowadays. But anyways, you know, they were not as nice, you know, and I told myself that I was going to break that cycle. I was going to break that mission.
That's so awesome you said that. I remember being all happy-go-lucky as a new cop, and I walked up to this dude. I said, "Hey, what's up, man? I'm Duran." He said, "Put your fucking hand down."
See?
And I was so like,
Yes.
oh my goodness.
Yes.
And I had to work like a high security area. I got held over. And I go over there. This cop looked at me. He just walked away. Didn't even want to work with me.
Yep.
For about maybe 3 months, nobody talked to me.
Yep.
And it was just a straight, cold-hearted, you don't belong here type of feeling. And officers don't get that nowadays.
No.
Because even me as a supervisor, hey, what's up, man? How you doing? If I don't know you, I do that because I know how it felt coming in and
That
being
part.
dogged, being
Yes.
looked at negative
Yes.
to you. It sucks. And I said, when I get wherever the fuck I'm going, I want to make sure not to do that.
Yeah.
And even then, we still have a little bit of black and gray area where people still try to play that card.
Yeah, a
but
little bit, but not as bad as
No.
it was. Because, man, let me tell you, you know, when I started, I remember, I don't even know if it was like week 1, month 1, whatnot, but I worked in the shoe, and the shoe was really nice back then. We had like 5 cops, not like 2 there is now, and it ain't even called shoe no more, but 5 cops, and the inmates walked the tier by themselves, one at a time. So it was like electronic release, they called it. And when they walked the tier, you know, you had to be like a seasoned cop to work back there. Well, I got slotted in there one day, and I was like, I didn't even get told one positive thing that day. I mean, I got told like, how the fuck did you get slotted in here? And and that was by a female cop.
Oh, man.
I was like, oh, females talk like that? Like, I thought people don't talk like that in prison. Say females, you know?
Right.
And I said, oh, I'm just here for the day. And they were like, okay, well, don't set your lunch bag right there. That's so and so's chair. Don't set your lunch bag right there. You can sit out there in the rotunda area. That's where the inmates go.
Yeah.
Like, really? Mind you, I didn't know that, so
Right.
I kept my lunch bag out there.
Yeah. You're still trying to learn. It's not like,
Yes.
hey, put your stuff over here,
Yeah,
girl. No,
and-
it's like, what the fuck you doing?
And then once I noticed that that's where like the inmates where you feed, and I was just like, dude, I'm 86th out of there. They kicked me out of the damn office.
Yeah.
But you know, I didn't know no better, so I was just like, well, I guess this is how I'm just gonna be treated, you know. But in my mind, I just told myself, I'm not gonna be that. I'm not
That's
gonna be
awesome.
that, you know. And I kept telling myself throughout the years, you know, you got to do better. You got to be better, do better, be better. And then when I became a field training officer, I would tell the field training sergeants, anytime you give me my groups, give me females. I want females
Right.
because I want to train them. I want to make sure they know the do's and the don'ts. You know, don't wear all this flashy makeup. Don't wear all this foo-foo gaudy stuff. I'm not saying you can't be yourself.
Right.
I'm not saying to come in looking like a dude.
Yeah.
You know,
Be conservative.
but be conservative. Remember where we're at. We're in prison, you know. Not only are you going to have, you know, these officer men looking at you, you know, but you're going to have these inmates looking at you.
Right.
And you know, you just be leery of where you're at. You know,
Right.
you're not on the streets.
Yeah.
You know?
You're there to be a peace officer.
Yeah, and I'm not saying we were just having that conversation inside visiting with my girls the other day about wearing like spray, like you know, body spray, you know, and 2 of them were like, we don't wear no body spray, we just smell like deodorant, and I'm like, shit, I wear body spray, I ain't trying to stink, and they're like,
Yeah.
well, bitch, we don't stink, we shower,
Yeah.
and we were having that debate, and I was all thinking like, I've always wore body spray, but to me, I don't think of it like I'm spending $30,000 on a
Right.
freaking Louis Vuitton freaking perfume. I spend $5 on freaking, you know, body spray from Victoria's Secret. you know?
Yeah.
But in my
Good
mind,
hygiene. That's good
yes,
hygiene.
it's just a spray, you know?
There's a lot
But
of guys that could take that
exactly.
advice.
Thank you. Because I mean, hello, we're females. Dudes, male cops hug us all day long, and I can
Right.
smell their damn cologne on me the entire day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, bro, who you trying to impress here?
Man.
Bro.
Yeah. Some of these new guys, I'm like, holy smokes.
Holy
man.
smokes. Okay, so that's what I was trying to get at. Is like, you know, I wish more females, when I get them, I could like school them to the
Right.
point where it's like do's and don'ts, not just the way they look. I'm not trying to school that, but just the ins and outs of it. Like, you know, be you, be consistent, stay who you are, you know, walk with pride, you know, keep your head up, don't put your hands in your pockets. Just little tips and trades that I've learned along the way.
Right.
Because there's things that I see and do that catches me on my way that I'm just like, oh, I remember so and so taught me that, so I want to relay that to the new cop, or I don't want to be that guy. you
No,
know,
you're right. And one thing I've noticed with women to men is like women officers, if an inmate's talking to them, if they don't talk right away and they kind of just hold back for a minute, you'd be surprised that most inmates will talk way more because they get nervous. And they'll say whatever they need to say right off the bat compared to like somebody that's like, oh, this, that, oh, yeah, let me look into it. They don't really know. There's a lot of strong women that can just look at somebody in the eye, and most men are get intimidated. And they'll tell you whatever it is you're asking. The field training program, I think, is pretty good. I think it'd be better if they could put like new officers, maybe like in your area, for at least a week. And then the next week go to Sea Yard. The next
Yes.
week go to SHU.
not one day at a time.
Yeah, because that one day it's too hard to retain.
Yeah.
And then go to another area. So I think it'd be a little better if they did it that way. That's cool that you're doing the field training stuff
Yeah.
because there's a lot more female staff coming in the department now. So them kind of seeing how you do it is really good. Man.
Yeah, I let them put waist chains on me. I let them put handcuffs on me. Like, you know, I spray them down, make them all clean and stuff. But, you know, they say that they're like, you know, especially the, you know, I hate calling them COVID cops, but like the cops that came in during COVID, they weren't even allowed to touch a inmate or like their cossets or whatever they call them when they
Right.
go to tours. They weren't even allowed to do any of that. So whenever they came into an institution, they didn't even know how to put a handcuff on.
I saw that.
Yeah,
That's
so
scary.
that's scary, especially when you come into an institution. You're like, oh my god, that's a real inmate. Yeah, that's a real inmate. You
These
know,
are your partners.
yeah,
You know?
So that's a real scary part. Knowing that our new partner never even seen an inmate. You know, and now we're walking a main line. You know, and I hate even saying main line. Like I was telling my partners the other day, we have two brand new cops. Mainline is mainline. I don't care if it's a GP setting or a SNY setting because the difference between a mainline inmate, and an SNY inmate is nothing. They're still
Right.
CDC numbers.
Yeah.
They'll kill you the same.
Yeah.
You know, a level 2 inmate is the same as a level 4 inmate. They just been doing better.
You're right.
You know, I don't like I don't know that word the difference between the two. There is none. You know, they'll still do bad stuff. You know, you can't be leery on one and not leery on the other. So don't let your complacency down, you know. And I try telling all these newer cops that because I hear it all the time whenever they come in and they're like, hey, when they run into one of their own from their academy or whatever, hey, where are you at? Oh, man, I'm on 3B yard or 4B yard. And man, it's so easy over there, these guys. And I'm like, no,
Right.
don't. Because let me tell you something. Officer Gallegos was killed in a dorm setting by a level 2 inmate.
Right.
So don't forget it. It does not matter who they are. They're still an inmate. You treat them accordingly. I'm not saying to go and be, you know, mean or anything like that, but he's still an inmate. He's still in blues. You know, he's hopefully rehabilitating himself, but treat him still the same as a regular inmate, you know?
New officers, they don't really have the experience to see that. They go to an SNY facility, which is like a PC setting, and they're like, well, these guys are washed up or they're not about it. If you knew what that guy was a year ago,
Yeah.
you'd probably be scared out of your fucking mind.
Yeah.
Because
Or
that guy was like a shot caller.
Yeah.
He was running the MA or the Northern Structure area. And a lot of these guys didn't drop out. They got stuck by their own, or they got kicked off the yard because somebody wanted to take their spot.
Yep.
There's always somebody trying to be a bigger lion in this field, and that doesn't mean they're not about anything. So it's good you bring that up, because even with the PCSNY stuff, there's so many gangs among them that people don't realize anymore.
Oh, Jesus, it's disgusting. More bigger.
And you know that, being like part of the ISU, like all the different SNY gangs, there's so many, like all these tattoos. I don't even know what is anymore. I just know if they're tatted up and they're acting like a monk, they're probably part of something nowadays.
There's so many SNY gangs. A whole lot more SNY gangs than there is SCG1 gangs, like the mainline gangs,
Right.
you know, the validated gangs, you know. There's so many extra SNY gangs. And the SNY gangs can be just as worse, if not worser, if there's such a word, because they can be more dangerous.
Right.
Because you would, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No.
you know, like a BGF are all blacks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm not being racist, but you know, Southerners usually shaved heads. You know, and I'm just being statistic wise. You know, usually Northerners have hair or ponytails or slick back, or you know, Bulldogs usually have the Mongolians, or you know what I mean. And I'm just saying statistics. You know, Southerners usually wear white shoes. You know, and this is back in the day stuff. I mean, nowadays there's Converses now and stuff like that.
Right.
But, you know, back in when they would only have white shoes and not black and whites, you know. But there's little things like that. Now, I mean, you go to an SNY yard and the Zapatistas are all like all races. You know, the independent writers are every race, every flavor. You know, every inmate. And then it's crazy because you look at them and like you said about tattoos, you won't know unless you see a freaking 2.5 or a quarter on them and you're like, oh, you're a 2.5er.
Right.
So at least when you see the other side, the mainline gang or the level 4 gang or active gangster, you can kind of distinguish who's who in the zoo out there by who they are. Like an AB member, you know, is usually a white boy. You know, other than like an SNY gang, is a little bit more of a challenge if you don't know what you're dealing with.
That's why I tell cops, hey, talk to these inmates. I think new officers have a hard time of talking about too much personal shit and then talking about just what you're supposed to talk about.
Yeah.
Like there's a fine line of talking and exposing too much stuff. So when I talk to an inmate now, I mean, I know enough to where I can kind of work him just like an inmate would probably work a new cop. And talking about them, it gives you an idea of what they're about, where they're from, so you kind of know who you're dealing with. There's so many, like there was a guy I hit up the other day. You could tell he was about something, but he's washed up now, and he had Texas Syndicate blasted all over him. That's not a big gang over here. Imagine how big that
Over
gang
there.
was over there. That dude was about it. He was running shit, and nobody would have ever known that, you know. And some of these newer generation guys, they don't see that. They're like, oh, that ain't nothing. Oh no, that is probably one of the hardest fucking gangs there ever was at one time.
Well, that was one of our top 6.
That's a STG1.
Yeah, STG1 top 6 freaking back in the day. STG1 gang units was was the Texas Syndicates. You know,
And you know how, you know what I mean, how those guys are and what they were about.
yeah. And when you run across one of those here, it's very, very heavy if you were to dig into their files. You know what I mean? If you were to read who he is, what he is, you know what I mean? I've only ran across one of those Texas Syndicates in my lifetime, and he was an OG, you know, and he had an extensive file, but that's when it was a paper file. So, you know, you would have to go and pull like 10 volumes,
Yeah.
you know?
Of stuff he's done in his career.
Yeah. But I don't know how much more time do I have, but I do have one quick little funny story. But when I was in 3C04 control, I was doing I was in the control booth and we were doing Dragon Bag Canteen. And you stop the program in the building, which means you don't do no day room, no nothing like that for our canteen to come in. So because of the building being as heavy as it was with the gangs, we had like 3 bins of food coming in, canteen bags. And we knew it was going to be a heavy canteen day. So one of my gangsters came down and he's, you know, washed up now. He's now on the other side. He comes down and I used to have him in 4B1 left when he was a validated inmate. And he was still a gangster at this time. But he comes down. He was our captain's clerk. And he comes down. He comes to the podium. He's like, hey, Miss P, The big homie, they called him the old man, up in this cell wants to know if he could be a worker, a porter in the building. He wants to know because he don't want to be the yard crew no more. And I said, well, I only have one spot available, and I'm kind of heavy on Southerners. Mind you, he's a mafia member.
Right.
But I don't give him that credit. I know who he is.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I said, so I'm already heavy on Southerners. Well, this was when the Bulldogs and Southerners were all friends, you know? So I was kind of holding this spot for a Bulldog or a black or a white or whatever because we had them all mixed. But I said, but I'll pop him out today just to see how he works. But I want him working.
Right.
You know, you ain't going to take care of him or anybody else. Not in my building, right? He's like, no. He'll work, I promise. All right, we had 3 cans, which are big pulleys of canteen bags. So I would probably say about 200 bags, okay? So I could have used him. Anywho, pop him out. He comes down, and he's an older dude, little guy. He comes down, his shorts are pulled all the way up to his boobs.
Old school.
Charlie number. Oof. Probably giving up a little bit more information, but he comes down, he comes to the podium, he has a real paisa voice, a real paisa accent, and he sets his little tumbler up on the podium, and he starts talking to me. He's like, hey, Miss P, he's all, gracias, I appreciate you, letting me have the job. I said, no. Or he goes, the jale, but, the job. I said, no, I did not give you the job. You better talk to old boy again, And I said, you better talk to him again because I said I only have one spot available, but I'm going to try you out since I have these canteen bags. Right. But I want you working. He's like, no, I'm going to work. I said, okay, because everybody does everything for him. They give him his tray. They do everything but, wipe his ass, right. But they do everything for him. So anywho, he starts doing it. He starts dragging the bags, which means they pull the bag all the way up to the cell doors, and then I pop one door at a time, and the inmate pulls his bag inside. So, we get the canteen done. He actually worked. He worked in the building. He was good. Now it's time to take these carts back out to the canteen outside. The yard is full. The yard was full of inmates. Like, I don't know how many can go on a yard. 300, 400 plus, maybe? Yeah. It was a full yard. Mind you, this is a few years ago, back when we were fully running with no problems with the Bulldogs and Southsiders.
Right.
And I say on the radio to observation, hey, be advised, we have my porters at a 4 block that are taking 3 carts back to canteen. Let me know when they're heading back this way because I'm not letting nobody out, right? I didn't have nobody outside besides the porters.
Right.
10-4. So as soon as I open up the yard door, they're pushing the carts. Well, as they're pushing the carts, old boy's in the middle, the big homie. He's in the middle of the cart with the middle cart. Well, as soon as he walks out, I go to the back window. Well, I literally see what it looked to appear to be like almost a riot because all the Southerners start running over to grab that cart to push it for him.
Oh, shit.
Because they see him pushing it. And, Daddy don't push the cart.
Yeah. So who was this guy?
It was Henry Carlos, the big homie from Pelican Bay. I guess he was one of the ones that, did the biggest freaking riot in Pelican Bay history that injured a whole lot of correctional staff.
Right.
Broke one of the sergeants' back. It was the biggest riot against Southerners against staff. About 2018 or so, 2016, somewhere around there. Remember that in Pelican Bay? He was the one that conspired that. So we got him here at Corcoran State Prison, and he was housed in 3C04. And he was OG. He's still alive. He's still around. He's a Charlie number. And very respectful to us there. Not to me. I mean, to me, but there,
Right.
But he hates staff. He cannot stand cops. Oof. But I seriously was about to put the yard down because I seen about 10 guys, but they were hauling ass to the carts to where the observation was like, stop running on the yard because they were hauling ass, And then you seen the guys stand up by underneath the canopy, the cops stand up. And one of the cops said, Patino, who is that pushing the cart? I said, keep looking because I wanted staff to know that I got the heaviest guy on the yard to push that cart.
Right.
Why? Because he's an inmate. You know?
He respects you just like everybody else.
Yeah, and I know who he is,
Right.
but he respected me because I respected him. I respected who he was. I know who he is. Damn straight, you already know. I know exactly who he is. I know his history, his background, where he is, who he is, what he came from. And if you were to sit me here for about 5 more minutes, I could probably tell you a CDC number because the girls always laugh at me that I have an elephant memory.
Yeah.
But his Indio Carlos Henry, he has 2 first names, his first name and his last name, and he goes by the name of Indio. But he's a Mexican mafia member, and to me, I didn't treat him no different. I didn't treat him like a Mexican mafia member. He is an inmate. You know, he's a convict because he's a Charlie number, but in my eyes, he's a porter. You know, and if you're going to work, you're going to drag and bag these damn canteen bags, and you're going to push that cart out. You're not going to get treated any differently.
Right.
You're not going to get treated any special. I'm not going to give you no silver tray with a silver spoon in your mouth. I'm going to treat you accordingly. And on the yard, your little guys might treat you special, but that's what you got coming, not me, you know? Yeah. And whenever he came back, he came right back to the building with the porters. He got escorted back by his people.
Right.
But that was what the yard can do because the yard was out. So they're allowed to walk wherever they wanted to walk.
A lot of power there.
A lot of power there. But that just shows you how much power some of these guys can have.
Oh, yeah.
But as soon as my door opened, guess what? Those three
Worker.
Those 3 just walked in, and he was a worker. He came back, came to the podium, grabbed his old school tumbler that was stained God knows how many times with coffee because it looked like a brown freaking coffee cup.
Right.
But it was a tumbler with like tatted, etched whatever crap on there, and told me, you know, gracias in Spanish, and walked back to his cell and locked it back up. But, you know, I treat them the way they treated me.
And he probably respected that too. Like he probably just wanted to do a regular job, have a regular life.
Yeah. You know? And then don't get me wrong.
That's
I mean,
scary.
yeah, and don't get me wrong. I'd probably, you know, be a little bit more leery if I was like, you know, being disrespectful or out of pocket or anything like that. But, you know, you treat them just like anybody else. Like, you know, it is very scary because that man has a lot of power because of what I said about the Pelican Bay riot. You know, he took out 10 of us.
Yeah.
You know, 1 sergeant broke his back. You know, and he physically didn't do it. He sat on the sidelines. Right. But he had over 300 freaking Southerners.
He's calling the shots.
Do it, yeah. So this guy, one guy, just like you said, you know, earlier, this guy did it. But in my eyes, you know, I'm going to treat you like an inmate because if that's who you are. However, I'm going to give you the respect that you give me.
Right.
And ever since then, I never got no problems with this guy. And he would come to me and he would tell me, Miss P, you got any problems? I mean, like I said, he was saying in Spanish, you know, Miss P, you got any problems with my people? You know, you let me know. And I'm like,
went both ways.
Both ways, you know.
Yeah, that's when prison was, in my opinion, ran
prison
good.
Yes.
You know, the way it was supposed to be ran. Things are a little different now.
Very different.
There's guys just like that sitting on an SNY yard, on a non-designated yard. People will have no idea how this guy was running stuff back in the day. And that's why I always tell officers, hey, treat people with respect. Treat them, you know, that's your job, first of all. Mm-hmm. And when they get out of line, they do something they shouldn't do, hold your mud.
Yeah.
Don't give in to them. Don't let it faze you. Just keep carrying on with what yourself. If it gets out of hand to where you got to get physical or whatever, that's another story.
Yeah.
But just because some guy calls you a bitch don't mean you got to react on it. It is what it is. But a lot of these old school guys, you'll never even hear of them. They'll be in their cell 24/7. They're calling shots from their still on SY yard.
Yeah.
And those are your most like respected guys that are still calling and running shit, and you would never know unless you're like part of the gang unit to where you're kind of keeping tabs on everybody.
Mm-hmm. And they're the most quietest ones. You know what I mean? The quietest ones, I would always say, I went to a gang conference, and the most quiet, the one northerner that was dead for 18 years got flown in by the FBI at the gang conference, and they changed his name and everything. And we had to put our phones in a basket at the door so we couldn't take pictures or anything like that. Shit. And it was a whole bunch of law enforcement. It wasn't just CDC there. And, you know, God forbid they don't trust us either. But they flew this dude in, and he was dead. He was dead, like, on paper for 18 years. And he was a Northern Structure member. And he said the most dirtiest, nakiest people are the most quietest, cleanest individuals. which
Yeah.
is usually the Northerners, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So ever since then, I've always told myself, you know, if you ever go inside of a Northerner cell, he's the most dirtiest one. Like, even though his cell is probably immaculate and straight and clean,
Mm-hmm.
those ones are the worst ones because, you know, they're the ones that are like, good morning, good afternoon, like
Yeah.
real respectful because they have something to, you know, they're sneaky. You know,
Organized
there's something,
chaos.
yeah, organized chaos for real. You know, and I hate to say it, but one of my most respectfulest, most, you know, cleanest inmates, you know, he's dead now, but was Big Mondo Quinn, you know, Northerner Structure from Delano. He was blasted a year ago by cops at High Desert for killing one of his own. And, you know, we took him out, you know, and, you know, you shoot to stop the threat. And that's what they did. And he was in 4B1 left with me for this 5.5 years that I was back there. And he was my porter. He broke down, not like porter because they're shoe, but like did the little breakdown of the toilet paper because he couldn't have all that stuff. And most respectful Northerner I've ever met. And it was crazy because every time we would search a cell, we would never find anything. And every time I would go to that, every time I would search a cell, I would think of that gang conference, that gangster that got flown in. And I'm thinking in my head, something has to be in here. That Northerner told me something's in here.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know, and I could not find it. Mondo was one of the best Northerners that would get over on me every single time. But this is what we piggyback on. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. I lost every single time I would search Quinn's cell.
Right.
Just because I knew he had it in him or somewhere else. Like in another Northerner cell, you know?
Man,
But yeah.
that's crazy. And I remember this one OG, he paroled. He never thought he was going to parole because he was a lifer. And he ended up paroling. And he was telling me, he said, man, I haven't been out in 32 years.
Wow.
So it was a big old thing, you know, for him. And I said, hey, man, I need to ask you something. He said, what's up? What's up, Duran? I said, hey, I've been searching your fucking cell for 3 years. I know you got a phone in there. Like, well, where is it, man? He's like, oh, man, come on, man. I just need to know, like, well, where did you keep it at? Because I could never find it. And he's like, oh, we kept it right next to you guys. I said, what do you mean? He says, oh, well, right next to your officer station where we have the box where we drop all the paperwork, we hide our phones under there.
Oh my God.
So every morning when we come out, we'd go and drop off paperwork. One of our guys would grab the phone and take it to whoever needed it. So it was right next to you guys. I was like, oh my gosh.
Damn it.
Yeah, that's why every time you did a cell search, every time you did a sweep, we never had it to begin with.
Never had it.
We just got it in the morning when we needed it. Mm-hmm. And that's the only area we saw you guys never searched.
Wow.
I was like, damn, that's a good one.
Right?
But,
No, write that one down.
Yeah. And I mean, like 3 fucking years I searched this guy's
Yeah.
area. But it was cool that he shared that with me. So
Something to put in your pocket, huh?
Yeah.
Put in your toolbox.
Yeah. So I'm like, damn, dude, that was a good one.
Hey, one more thing too. When I was in the gang unit, we did a couple operations, right? We did Operation Boo.
What is that?
Operation Boo is during Halloween, not during, but on Halloween. We go with like outside agencies to kick down doors of chomos. Any registered, I don't want to say male because there was actually one female,
Oh, shit.
but yeah, that are registered. They can't have any Halloween decorations or have their lights on or handing out candy to any kids.
Oh,
And if they're registered, they're supposed to be registered. They cannot be living near a park or schools or anything like that. And we did that one, and we did Operation Northern Star. And that one was Northerners, obviously, in the Kings County and Tulare County area. And just it's kind of like a parole sweep, kind of, in a sense.
I heard about that one.
And, you know, like I said, my stuff is a little bit old. But it was 2 operations that, you know, a regular CDC cop won't do unless you're in a specialized unit,
Right.
you know? And you get to wear, like, your BDUs, and you get your outer vest with your little police little sign on your back with your police logo on your arm. And you basically go with outside agencies with paroles and OCS, and you kick down doors. Usually they lead and you follow.
That's fun.
Then,
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. And a couple of them, they actually let us lead. because if they were like former CDCR, like they just recently paroled, because obviously they look them up before we go to the door.
Yeah.
They kind of do their investigation work beforehand. They see that they just paroled from Corcoran. They tell us like, hey, this one's yours. And we're like, oh, this is fucking sick. Sorry. But,
That's cool.
we go in with our Glocks out and everything else. And then our Glocks, are out ready to go in. And you check your 90s, you go in, and you kind of go in like an formation, But it was pretty dope, But on one of them, the agency, it was outside agency. I don't remember if it was Kings County or Tulare County, but I'm leaning towards Kings County. But it's been a while. Like I said, I'm kind of old. But I want to say it was Kings County. But they said, when we were inside this house, it was the Northerners. When we were inside this house, we should have let CDC search. And we were like kind of looking at them like, why?
Yeah.
They said, because you guys would have found whatever we were looking for. And we were like, why? And we were smiling, but we kind of wanted to know why they said that little comment. Was it a jab or was it a compliment,
Right.
I was leading more towards a compliment because of the way he was saying it. He was kind of being like a dick about it, But he was like, well, because when we searched, we just looked like underneath the couch, underneath the bed, underneath the
basics,
cushions, underneath the whatever,
Yeah.
You guys would have looked inside of the Top Ramen, the peanut butter,
Yeah.
the wall crack.
You learn to search a whole other way.
Oh, yeah. You learn to search a whole nother way. You guys would have not left anything untouched. And he was like and then he kind of started like poking fun. You guys would have opened up the freaking tuna packet. You guys would have opened up the blood. You guys would have looked inside the shampoo bottle.
That's where we find everything.
Yeah. You guys would have busted the bar soap in half. You guys would have pulled out the toilet paper roll. And we all started laughing because he's right.
Yeah.
We all would have done that. We would have left every room.
You probably would have found everything too,
we
though.
would have found anything he was asking for, But it was kind of silly because that one Northerner's house, if I'm not mistaken, not mine, like I said, I don't take credit for anything, but my partners that were in that room that was being searched, the guy that was in the I don't want to call him the inmate, but the parolee, was hiding everything in the places where we found it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like he literally lived in that room, so he treated that room like his cell.
Yeah.
So he hid everything and everything we would have found.
And you guys could probably see that too, you know?
Yeah, like everything was inside books. So he had like kites and stuff inside books that he brought out of prison to distribute into the streets. So they were inside books. Like it was just creepy. Like it was like inside deodorant caps. Like he found
like in prison.
Oh, yeah, just like in prison. So my partners found all of his stuff or all the stuff that they were looking for inside that one room, but just like a cell. And I was just like laughing because I was just like, wow, like sometimes things just are institutionalized, both friend and foe, because we looked inside the same stuff that we're trained to look in, and the inmate lived just like he was institutionalized inside of a cell.
People forget we're institutionalized just like they are sometimes, and we see things differently just like they do. Man, shoot. Well, it's been fun.
Yes, thank you.
If you could leave off with anything for some of the new female generation coming in, you got any advice you could kind of throw at them real quick?
I would say my best bet is, be you, be strong, be mindful, come in with your head on a swivel, man. Come in with your head on a swivel. Be the best you can be. Be the next me, and I say that as humble as I can possibly be, because I want the better generation of myself.
Right.
You know what I mean? I want to teach you and make you better.
Man, I like the way you said that. Every time I talk to an officer, I like to share with him everything I know, whether it's a new sergeant or whatever. I want him to know everything I know because I want him to be better than me.
Better than me.
Because if I'm kind of struggling in areas or somebody's doing a little bit better than me, that means I need to step my game up.
Yes.
So it's awesome you said that.
Be better. Be better than me.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll have to do another episode maybe to talk about gangs.
Yeah.
Talk about searching.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on how you search visitors, because a lot of prisons always reach out and they struggle with, hey man, how do you have your female staff strip out some of these ladies? And I'm like, Patino is probably the best one to do that. So we'll have to do another
Yes,
episode on that if that's good.
I would love to, especially gangsters too. I'm all about that, you know.
Well, thank you, Patino, for
Yes.
being a guest on Corrections Unlocked, for sharing your story with us. It's been fun.
Thank you
guys.
for having me.
If there's any question you guys have about Corrections Unlocked or topics you would like to hear discussed, please reach out to correctionsunlocked@gmail.com. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for our next episode.